Who else?
That's it for now.
Really?
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! Indy! Yes. 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back after a holiday weekend, Memorial Day holiday weekend. I hope everyone had a great, relaxing time. And let's not forget to salute those of what that holiday weekend was all about. All of our servicemen who gave the ultimate sacrifice and sacrificed their service, period. But back all through time, to be honest with you. And I think that today too many people forget about that. It's just a holiday without thinking the how, the what, the why. But I watch a lot of historical stuff because I try to get away from sports when like going to bed or whatever weekends, and if I can, and watch a lot of historical things, and whether it could be about Egypt and all of that, or the World War II and the battles, but all those guys that were so young, but it's a lot. And I think we just forget that too easily. So salute to those guys again, for allowing us to be here to do this, what we do freely. And I think we take it for granted, but man, it was not just given to us without a lot of sacrifice. How's everybody doing? Welcome back from a weekend of which I got to tell you, it ended up being a pretty relaxing one for me. The rain came in and looked like it was going to wash out the Indianapolis 500, but not quite. They were able to get that race in. Kyle Larson finishes the race and then takes off to go to Charlotte, which he arrives there for that race. We'll talk about that. The incomparable Bill Walton has passed away. And I got to tell you, he was one in a million. He was a different cat. And a lot of people have different experiences and different opinions on his duties as calling games, whatnot, because he was off the charts, off the rails all the time. I am one that thoroughly enjoyed him. I enjoyed his uniqueness. I enjoyed his purposeful, not being like anybody else. And I thought he was pretty funny, but he was a very, very intelligent guy. I had the opportunity to personally work with him when he was with CBS way back in the day. I was working an NCAA site in Louisville. Actually, that site was crazy. I worked with Bill Walton, Quinn Buckner, Billy Packer, Jim Nance. I'm trying to think of even my favorite, who's there today doing it. Daggone it. Darn it, John, I can't think of who's on CBS now. Dude, he's like one of the main guys. The older guy. I'm drawing.
Is it oh my gosh,
Bill Raftery.
Raftery. Bill Raftery. I knew I was going towards the Bills, but I wasn't sure who.
I was able to, they were all there because this was a big time site. It was 1991. Indiana was rolling. But I remember I had to go get lunch for all of these guys, for all the talent. And so everybody else had normal stuff. And of course, Bill Walton wanted some kind of tofu lunch. And I'm thinking, what the F? Where am I going to find that? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so I had just left the Freedom Hall area, which is where the games were being played. And I drove by this place and I looked back and it was like a foo-foo place. And I'm like, boy, I pulled in there and I said, would you happen to? Yeah, we can make something like that. Bam. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I go back and I got it. I was proud of myself. But a friend of mine texted me yesterday and he said, man, because I did a lot of other things as well. He had some shoes delivered. He had just had his ankles fused, where he had problems with his feet, he had all those injuries. But he had left me a message at home. And my friend said, man, I remember when you played that message for me. And I wish, why was I so stupid not to save that? Golly, I really wished I had. I can still almost hear it. Jim Coyle, this is Bill Walton. I just want to thank you so much. You're the best. You were so awesome. He would just went on and on. He was great. And why I did not save that, I probably did and just lost it. I feel like an idiot. But
that's a cool thing to have had experience, though, because I'm sure there's many people who have never had the chance to interact with Bill Walton.
Oh, absolutely. I just wish I was smart enough to have saved that and kept that recording of that. I mean, gee whiz. But yeah, it was awesome. It's always awesome getting to work with all of those guys. But yeah, he was different. He was special. What a hell of a player. I mean, he was a legend on the court. He led UCLA to 2 of their national championships during and 2 national titles, or rather 2 NBA titles before succumbing to cancer, unfortunately, passing away on Monday, surrounded by his loved ones. But he was absolutely one of a kind, and those people stand out. And a lot of people, don't like them because they stand out so much. Then some do, and I just happen to like him. And
I know you mentioned this at the very beginning, but for me, the Maui Invitational kind of loses its luster a little bit. And not that it's not a great event.
Everything loses its luster with him. We won't have the Pac-12 games anymore.
Of course.
That's something else I loved. At nighttime, it was like a comedy routine of sorts. Those games that come on, which was great because you want to talk about, getting put to sleep, but those late night Pac-12 games, but maybe we'll have them with the Big Ten because of who knows how they'll schedule those, but maybe we'll still have those, but we will not have the great Bill Walton on the call. But yeah, he was a great player. Just he suffered through too many injuries, but ended up being a part of the Celtics back at the end of that run by Bird and all those guys. He was on the bench. I think he got 6th man of the year.
That is correct.
When he was there, so he was able to come back and do some of that. But he was a true character, and he loved UCLA. He loved his school, and you just gotta. There was just nothing I didn't like about him. His goofiness was his, and that's cool. I'm like, you know what? Being a character is it's hard to do because you're kind of going out on a limb by doing that. But if you don't care, if you're just being yourself like he was, there's nothing else you can do. Don't want to forget that. Don't forget we are Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just make sure you go to AndyMooreHonda.com where you can get the best in new and used vehicles and get more to your door. Also, the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal rewards. You can just go to the Autograph app on Google Play or the Apple App Store and download that today. Make sure you use the code ISB Media on there to get some extra boosted. But this is where you can find all your content in one place. And it is the place to go. It's We're real fans, get unreal rewards. And like I said, download the Autograph app today and get tuned in on that. But lots to get to on the program today. Todd Lirry will be joining us as well as opposed normally on yesterday, but today instead. And we'll have who are we not having today? Mike DeCourcy. He'll be back with us next week. So
and I'm working on seeing if Greg Rakestraw is able to come on later on in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Well.
Be cool. The Pacers go down in 4, and that, that stinks, but hey, representing the Pacers today. Great run this year. A great run by the Pacers. They lose to a team who very well may end up winning the NBA championship. The West is kind of topsy-turvy with the Nuggets getting knocked off. And this is going to probably come down to has Minnesota already won? I've not kept up with it. I kind of checked out this weekend, man. So there's a few things that I missed, but appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline from all over the place as well. Chris on from Walton, England. Love to have him. We got Walton, England, and Las Vegas with Las Vegas Larry. So you want to talk about a time zone reach right there? It's 3 hours earlier in Las Vegas, and it's about 6 hours ahead in Walton, England. So all I can say is wow. Love having each and every one of you. Appreciate you guys. David, there's a new name on from Louisville. Appreciate you, man. I played high school football with a little swope. Trying to remember the first name. But everybody jumping on, really appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody, wherever you are listening on. 97.7 The Ref, ESPN in Evansville, always the right call. 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station. Appreciate everybody there in Fort Wayne. Tomorrow we'll be talking, of course, to our good friend Dylan Sin from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. And 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, the voice of the region, WJOB, as well. Hope everyone was Tanis, I was excited to see Walton come to Assembly Hall. That would have been amazing. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that opportunity. I didn't even think about that. How cool would that have been? Daggone it. Just, man. But he was a legend. So hate to see it. Well, of course, you always hate to see that, but it's a little surprising to me, to be honest. I wasn't aware that he was dealing with brain cancer.
And I feel like you see a lot more, and not that you want to classify Walton as a celebrity necessarily. Obviously,
he's a celebrity.
Yeah, it's just I feel like there's a negative connotation with that word for whatever reason. Maybe that's just my.
No, he's a good celebrity. He's a good celebrity.
But a lot of people of his stature, at least nowadays, I feel like tend to keep those types of diagnoses to themselves. And maybe it's because it's a private piece of information. And, we didn't learn about this until literally after he passed away. And it was his private, he was able to have his private moment with his family. And, he was able to go away peacefully. And I'm sure that's the way that he wanted it, I would think.
You're probably dead on with that. Absolutely. Well, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar talked about it. He said, "And the world feels so much heavier now. On the court, Bill was a fierce player, but off the court, he was happy unless he did he wasn't happy unless he did everything he could to make everyone around him happy. He was the best of us." And that sounds about right. He was just always an upbeat, funny character. And, we're going to miss that. So salute, Bill. We salute you, my friend. I was grateful to have been able to cross your path. The Indianapolis 500 over the weekend as well. Man, it was it looked like it was never going to happen. We thought, looking at the weather forecast, it wasn't going to happen. The rains came. There was a delay, but it ended up being a spectacular race. They get the race off, and it was a great race and a great finish. If you watch that finish, Pato O'Ward, and don't be confused by that name, Pato O'Ward. He's not an Irishman. He's Mexican. I don't understand. I'm going to have to research the Irish name for a Mexican person. But they were going back and forth. And at one point, he could have easily passed him. It looked like Joseph Newgarden slowed down so much, and then he slowed down to not pass, waiting for the last lap. He takes the lead, and then unfortunately for him, Joseph Newgarden gets him back and passes, and he becomes the first driver in 20 years to win back-to-back Indianapolis 500s. So Joseph Newgarden, the American, takes home that checkered flag back on the wall. You see right there, man. And he receives the largest payout in Indy 500 history. It was the Indianapolis 500 purse was shattered for a third year in a row after the weather delayed 108th running of it, presented by Gamebridge. But Joseph Newgarden earning $4.288 million from a total purse of $18 million. He won $4.28 million, basically $4.3 million for winning that race. That's unbelievable. There were record-breaking payouts in 22 and 23, but this is the largest purse and largest winners payout in the century plus history of the greatest spectacle of racing, of course. This year's average payout for all drivers was $543,000. Average payout. So last place probably paid not too badly. But man, it was a great race, fun race. The crowd, how about this? They had to get everybody out first and evacuate because of the weather. And usually when you do that, you just lose a lot of people. But when they come back in, or they allow people back in, it was packed. It's amazing. The Indy 500 is without question the greatest spectacle in sports. They call it the greatest spectacle in racing. But these people were the greatest. Attending the 500, sat with fellow ISBR participant. Oh, there you go. Fred and Michael got to sit together. I saw Michael last year. I didn't get to see Fred this year because I was going to wait to go up, and then got so late. I'm like, yeah, probably not going to do that, but we'll see you guys next year. We've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Hope you're having a great day. We'll talk about lots more, including the Indy 500, the Coca-Cola 600, Indiana baseball in the NCAA playoffs. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Good morning, Mr. Leary.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Man, you're best. John, do you want me to get JD Campbell today?
If you want to, I haven't heard back from Greg. What time was JD wanting to come on?
Well, it doesn't. Well, you got to tell me what time.
Well, I just didn't know if he said he was available at a certain time.
No.
How about see if JD can do 10:10, because I'm still waiting to see if Greg can do 9:50. That way we have two bases covered in case they both say yes.
Toddrick, how are you, brother?
I'm all right. How are you?
Your favorite person in the world died.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Are you being sarcastic? Do you not like him as a sportscaster?
He's
he hated him.
He's the absolute
Oh
worst.
man,
He hated him.
I could not.
enjoyed
not
it.
listen to him. Absolutely unwatchable.
I love it. It's not mind-boggling because I get it, but it is funny how polarizing he is. But he doesn't.
I love listening to him because he cracked me up, but not if he was doing a game that I really cared about.
Right.
If it was a game which he was always doing Pac-12 games, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So
yeah,
but
the Maui Classic was really the only thing that ever.
Yeah.
But see, one thing they did last year, and maybe it was even the last couple of years, they started giving him all the games that were like the consolation games. He wasn't doing like the important ones. Like if you were playing for seventh place or whatever, he was.
But that's
getting
because
those
they had Jay Billis and those.
Oh
guys
yeah,
over there.
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. They're not going to give Bill Walton the important games that people are bitching about it.
Only Todd was bitching. What are you talking about?
No,
No,
I don't think that's true.
That's not true.
I love it. I'd love to see how many people complain if this would never happen. But if he did like the national title game, if he got thrust into that, people would lose their minds.
Yeah, well, I mean, he just didn't talk about the game.
No, like talk about his times at the Grateful Dead concerts. He'd talk about
random things and like that.
Loving
all
his
that at
bike.
the beginning was kind of quirky and funny, and he would just sprinkle it in. But then it became that's all he did and talked about. You'd ask him a question, and then he'd ramble on about something that was irrelevant. Like, I don't root for anybody to die like that, but in any way. But I didn't like him as an announcer.
Yeah,
that's
totally fine.
I won't bring that. I mean, I'll only bring it up as I won't even bring it up in that regards because
I'm cool with it.
I got to work with him once. He was pretty cool. Yeah,
everybody had an interaction with him, loved him.
10 seconds, guys. Here we go.
Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, welcome back on this post-Memorial Day Tuesday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Jim Coyle with you as always. Todd Lirry joining here. Todd, how was your weekend, sir?
It was fantastic. A lot of golf. A lot of.
Oh, yeah? Where'd you play?
I played at the Point every day.
Wow. Did you really?
Yeah.
Someone said they saw you out. Were you playing on your own or playing with some guys?
No, playing with my normal group of idiots.
Is that who all's in that?
You know, Larry and Rick,
Larry,
Jake. And...
okay, just curious. Man, we missed having you down at down in Jasper at Zoltan's Run. Good gosh, that's such a beautiful course.
The course it's one you can call it hidden or underrated because I'll say everybody doesn't know about it. Golfers know about it, and it is beautiful. It's an awesome, great layout, in great shape. Like it's hidden gem down there in Jasper. But everybody's played it knows how great it is. It's just
it's crazy because you're surrounded by cornfields. You kind of drive out of a little town, which you are. So you're already in the country. And you enter this entrance that doesn't really say, you don't, other than the brick entrance, you don't really know that you're entering something great because it's still very subdued. But you get to the course and it's like, holy, what? It's like, now on 18, they've got this gigantic waterfall, which is incredible. And then, but we putted out and I was walking off and I saw something and I'm like, it kept moving. And I'm like, that's a snake. And so I went over and picked it up with my putter and tried to pick it up with my putter and scooted it on over to the sand. He was fine.
I deleted the last 10 seconds of this conversation because I cannot say that.
Oh, not a fan of snakes, huh?
No.
Well, I'm not either, but I could tell he wasn't. anything of bad. So, but I just scooted him along. But you missed out playing with Mitchell Page. And
I would have liked to have done that. Believe me.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. We ended up shooting a 58 with me. And
he said he got to hit 2 shots a lot, so that was going to be a benefit.
Yeah, that funny thing is my second shot was usually worse than my first.
That's not normal for a golfer.
No, but I'm not a normal
usually everybody's
golfer.
B player is way better.
Yeah, it should be. We had the Indianapolis 500 over the weekend. There was a lot going on, man. Have you ever been to the Indy?
I have. Being from Indianapolis, you would think it was something I went to more, but I've actually only been to it twice. I've been to some of the festivities more than that, but the actual race, I've only been to it twice. You know me well enough to know that I'm not a big crowd person.
Yeah, well, I get it.
Crowds.
It's and if you want to talk about crowds, there's none bigger than that at the Indianapolis 500, 300,000 plus. I was just raving about how incredible the crowd was because they had to get evacuated. Yeah. There was such a weather delay, and when they come back, the freaking stands are full. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man.
I thought the same thing. I thought it might be like super empty. Because, even when they brought him back, you still weren't sure at that point whether they were going to get the race in or not. Like, it could have rained. It could have opened up at any point in time. And yeah, I saw the pictures and the highlights on TV and was pleasantly surprised. Being from Indy, like, you like for that thing to be big and successful and all that it is. And, it was impressive to see all the fans show back up because it wasn't a perfect weather day, that's for sure.
I would love to be the pace car driver one time, boy. I would just get it around that track.
That would be pretty incredible.
But I'd rather drive around a NASCAR track because this Indy doesn't have any banking. It's 9 degrees in the corner, and
but the amazing part about driving that the speed of driving a pace car and all that would be awesome. But just coming around the corner and seeing that wall of people. I mean, it gives you goosebumps. I'm not a race car driver or fan in any way. I just enjoy watching it because it's in Indy. But I mean, it gives you chills. Like so many different parts of that, the pre-race flyovers and all the military stuff they do. It all just gives you chills. It's such a big event and awesome.
And an incredible finish this year again as Joseph Newgarden, him and Pato O'Ward. And I was talking about. I told the listeners, don't be confused. Pato O'Ward is not an Irishman like you would think. He's freaking Mexican. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I go, that makes zero sense. I don't understand that, but I'll have to dig into that and do some research. But Pato O'Ward, which sounds like Patrick O'Ward, is Irish. He is Mexican. So, but man, he was so close. They were going back and forth, and Joseph Newgarden with the experience and makes the pass again to get the win. First guy in 20 years to win back to back. And, but that was something. David Letterman was there, of course. It's just an incredible event. And to have that in Indianapolis is great. We had the Pacers playing in the NBA conference finals. Unfortunately for them, they just didn't have enough. You didn't have Tyrese Halliburton. You're going up against maybe the best team in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, to lose 4-0, and this is, I don't think Boston fans would argue with this statement. That very easily, we could be sitting here today with the Pacers with a 3-1 lead. Like, They not only could have won 3 of those games, they should have won 3 of those games. And that is, you kind of make the joking statement about it sometimes. And in this regard, like, it's just true. Like, I'd almost rather have lost by 30 and felt like you had no chance because the way they lost the first game, that's really difficult to come back from. And then they were able to, have that lead at home. The first game they had at home, game 3. And man, like you can't lose either one of those. Like It to me looked like a team that's very mature in Boston, that's very mature and experienced, and kind of knew they were going to win and pull it out. And it was a Pacers team that is at least playoff based and experienced, and it was just obvious. Like I don't think there's any other way to say it. Indiana blew two unbelievable opportunities that Jim, me, you, and John on here could not have lost those games. Just the three of us. Like it's just you can't lose game one and game three.
No.
Like it, just impossible.
And well, in any tournament, especially at that level, the margins are so slim. When
Yep.
you have the opportunity, you have to seize them because of this, exactly what you're talking about. It's razor thin. You have to
Yep.
do everything to win, and if not, it's going to be an uphill climb. And it was that very thing for the Pacers. They were going up against a team that was superior to them, but they had the ability to win,
them.
like you said.
Yeah.
And
but there's no question Boston is a more talented team overall. They're a more talented team, especially with the experience they have in the playoffs. When you see Jason Tatum has been to the conference finals, I think 5 out of 6 years or 6 out of 7 years, like that's crazy. Like that's a lot of experience. They talk about Al Horford has played over 180 games in the playoffs. I mean, that's 2 full seasons worth of games, more than.
didn't he used to play for the Pacers?
Al Horford?
I was thinking maybe it's
I don't
Tito
think so.
I'm thinking of.
No.
I'm thinking maybe it's somebody else I was thinking of.
Yeah. But I mean, Boston's just, they played like the team that was Big Brother. And that's not a great place to be in if you're the Pacers. But I mean, they've got a lot to build on. They got a lot of young players that played unbelievable. Nebhard and those guys. I mean, they played really, really well for the lack of experience they've had in the playoffs.
The good thing is they've got that entire entire team coming back for the most part. So when you usually you're like, they're going to lose this or they're going to lose that. That is not expected to happen. This is a young team with all these pieces. So this is a franchise that should be right back in it next year.
You would definitely think so. I mean, one of the really impressive things I think about the Pacers throughout the year was the fact that they were able to play at the speed and pace that they played at and still not turn the ball over at a ridiculous amount. And I think that's what cost them in the long run in the playoffs was they did turn it over more frequently than they had been used to. And they had some really bad, untimely turnovers at the end of some of those games that just really the only way they could have lost is to turn the ball over, and they did. And so, yeah, the young inexperience will definitely benefit these guys down the road and everything that they were able to go through and how close they were. I mean, I'm not. I don't think I feel any different than most other people. Like they had 2 games won. It should be 2-2 at an absolute minimum, and probably should be 3-1 right now. And instead, it's 4-0. And so that's, there's a lot to build off of, but it's also going to take a few days to get over that one.
Yeah, and that's what you do. You take a few days, you get over that, and you get back to work.
Yep.
And you have to get back to work now. And that's the thing. What do they have to do to get over that? What do they do better? Of course, injuries played into that with Tyrese Halliburton there.
Sure.
And you've got to have everything at peak level when you're in the playoffs, when you're going up against a team like the Boston Celtics. You got to be at peak level, and
Right.
They weren't.
Right. Yeah. You've got to do some extraordinary stuff in a positive way, and you've got to do some things that maybe you didn't do throughout the whole season, and be better at all the things that you were already good at, and they just weren't that in the playoffs, and or at least in this series, and they had the opportunities, like they put themselves in a position to win, they just didn't close at the end of games, and that is, that's something that'll come with experience, but also in the NBA, like you just talked about, they're kind of fortunate to have a lot of this nucleus back. And so, we'll see. There's going to be a lot of expectations coming in next year. And the Pacers were fortunate. They played a Milwaukee team that had obviously tons of turnovers, or tons of injuries. And then they played a New York team that dealt with multiple injuries. So, the Pacers were fortunate to get to where they were. But boy, did they have a big opportunity that they let go.
Yep. We've got lots more coming up. We've got the Todd father with us right now, Todd Lirry, and we will be back with more after this. Brought to you by Remax Realty and Cheryl Sizemore. For those looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, look her up. Cheryl, contact her. CherylIndyHomePros.com. Her and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, Bill, I hope you're going to see
Is it Dr. J?
Hope you're seeing Dr. J, since you're down there in southern Indiana, brother.
Better be at Dr. J.
Now, Bill is our longest listener ever. I can tell you that because he listened to the show when we were just on the station.
Isn't he from Birdseye? Isn't he from Birdseye?
No, Jeffersonville.
Oh, he's from Jeffersonville?
Yeah.
Then he definitely better go to Dr.
Exactly.
J.
It's what I was thinking. Reynolds Family Dentistry, man. You got to switch if you're not. I need to get down there.
That's where I go.
I know. You've had even your son's there, right?
Yep.
Family. See, it's a family practice. Reynolds Family Dentistry. It's why they call it that.
They're the best.
Man. College. Oh. SHIT tomorrow night.
What you got?
Is the deal at Huber's.
Oh, wow. That's tomorrow.
What?
Tomorrow night.
Oh, they did that in the fall.
Nope.
No, it's always been, or at least it was the spring last year. I know that.
No shit.
Yeah, it's been in May for a while. It always seems early to me too. I'm like, every time it comes, I'm like, really already?
Tomorrow?
But it's tomorrow night. Both head coaches will be there.
Interesting. I hadn't heard anything about it.
We've been talking about it, but
do you have somebody else
brought
coming
it
on?
a few times last week.
What's that?
John, do you have somebody else coming on here?
Not for this segment, no.
Okay.
The food's great, and we get to eat. That's the good part is we get to eat. They have that big old fried chicken dinner.
I've never been to it.
Oh man, you should go. You should go with us sometime. I'm going down. I can't wait. I look forward to the fried chicken dinner, to be honest with you. More than anything else. But it's the first time we'll get to talk to Woodson, and the last time we'll get to talk to Woodson until the season. And then it's, of course, Kurt Signetti, the same thing. Last time we'll get to talk to him. First time in a while. And the last time, yes, until media day. So
you want me to go ahead and tell you? I could probably give you Woodson's speech right now. I could probably come pretty close to rattling it off.
In which speech?
Well, what he's going to talk about, I mean.
No, who? Which one?
Woodson's.
Oh, Woodson, yeah.
All right, here we go, guys.
What's it going to be? Oh.
You can do it on the air if you want.
No, I'm good.
For 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, post-Memorial Day holiday. Again, salute to all of those servicemen. Thank you for all of those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you for those that served. Thank you for those that serve now. I think we take that so much for granted. Gary, hello to you in New Albany as well. Speaking of Gary and Bill and everybody else down in Southern Indiana, especially. Tomorrow night is the Hoosiers at Huber's returning for its annual gathering. Wednesday, May 29th, again tomorrow night. Join Hoosiers Connect for an evening at Huber's Orchard Winery and Vineyards. This event mainly for Southern Indiana and Louisville Hoosier communities, so they can gather in there. Will feature head football coach Kurt Signetti, head men's basketball coach Woodson, and players from Indiana men's, women's basketball program and the football program. There's an autograph session afterwards. Proceeds from this year's event will benefit Indiana's NIL program. The cost is only $50 per person, as it has been for years. That hasn't changed. The doors open at 5:30. The program starts at 6. You can register online at inforindiana.com. There you go, inforindiana.com. We'll be down there, of course, covering that, but that it's usually just packed. Todd, you've never been able to make it down there, but the fried chicken dinner at Huber's is awesome, and I always look forward to that as much as anything. But
I know everybody always raves about it.
Yeah, it's a fun event, and it's full. I mean, this thing packs it in. It started out as just a thing to get Bob Knight down there. It was Bob Knight doing, what he used to do, to go give those talks where he made everybody laugh, and he would cuss here and there.
Some people cry, and yeah.
Oh yeah, but I remember I've told this story. I was still in school but working in media, and I had it set up for I was at WLKY in Louisville, and I had it set up for us to get an interview with Knight. It was approved, and but the local alumni association guy was, swelling his chest up. He didn't know anything about what was going on, and wouldn't allow us in. And so we got turned away, but that got made up later. But still, it was fun. But it's a great event, and it's a great time for the fans down there to now they get to see and hear from multiple coaches, players, which has not happened before. And this is fueling the NIL because we've had this recent agreement that is an ongoing thing with the NCAA, that they're going to shell out $2.8 billion back to 2016, man. So you're not in that. You don't get covered by that, unfortunately.
I do not.
You should have filed suit, but I think the statute of limitations can only stretch back to so far. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't think that they're too worried about people from the 90s in that NIL deal, but the whole scenario is just bizarre and weird. It doesn't make any sense, but it's the changing world of college athletics, and the whole amateurism thing that was always tied to the NCAA and college and all of that. I think that's the part of it that we all have to understand is gone, because these guys are no longer amateurs. Like, they are.
Yeah, on paper they're not, but I still think that they're amateurs. I know
because in our minds, that's what it's been for 48 years in our brains. And so we're just not used to dealing with it yet. But I don't see it ever going back, and we're just going to have to deal with the fact it's different. They are paid employees.
And I want to look at it as an amateur, but you have to stop and think, these guys they're free agents, and they make deals to go to different teams. The one thing I cannot stand, and I hope that they're able to get a grip and change, is the ability for these players to just go from team to team to team. And I hope that they can also somehow work in a way to where there's like a multi-year agreement to where you are bound for multiple years if you sign an agreement someplace.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, I don't know if I know what the answers are. I know my quick thought on it, in there's probably more layers than it needs to be talked more about. But I mean, the easy thing in my mind to do would be, you can transfer one time, no questions asked, leave, go to a different school, do whatever you want one time, and that's it. And then there would be such a hard line and number of hoops you would have to go through in order to transfer a second time that they'd almost have to make it not worth it for somebody to sit out like 2 extra years or something else. But I understand everyone should have the ability to leave and go do something different if the situation isn't what they thought it was going to be. You make a decision about where you're going to school when you're 18 years old, and I can understand like it might not work out the way you thought. But transferring one time, I think would be fair and make some sense and be okay for a lot of people. But after that, they should not be allowed to transfer again, in my opinion. One time and that's it.
Yeah, and it used to be that way. It used to be,
No, it didn't. It used to be you still had to sit out a year.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It used to just not. It wasn't either. It wasn't worth it, or it was too hard. But
right.
And I mean, they had to fight for, just 2 years ago, those guys that were fighting for a transfer, that they were being ruled against them because they had a transfer, but they didn't play someplace and all that. And then, they kept getting sued and losing. And I'm like, good God, they've never won a suit, I don't think. Right. And they just were never challenged before. But now there's also a suit going on. But this is where I find the NCAA is just complete idiocy. The 2 guys from the Ivy League, who the Ivy League did not play during the COVID year. They shut sports down.
Right.
Everyone else still played. But all of those guys were also granted a 5th year that played. But the guys that didn't even get to play in the Ivy League were not granted a 5th year. And so they're fighting, and they're suing to get their 5th year, and the NCAA is fighting it. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? This is why you lose every freaking time you're in court.
Well, and I have said this, and I don't know what argument would have to happen to get me to change my opinion on this, but the IHSAA and the NCAA are 2 organizations that do not have a governing body. They don't answer to anyone. No one tells them what to do. They make their own rules. And when you break those rules in the past, you've been ineligible to play. And that's kind of been what's allowed them to stay in charge. And now people are questioning that, and not just questioning it, but challenging it and winning those challenges. And now the NCAA is getting ready to be, and it's not going to be this year, and maybe they'll make adjustments so that it never ends up happening, but they're on the border of putting themselves in a position where they're just going to have to go away because they're not going to govern over anybody. And these teams will just make up a super league or whatever they'll end up doing. And the NCAA and the IHSAA, from an Indiana standpoint, a high school basketball or high school sports, the IHSAA is just as bad. Like, they're actually worse. Like, they affect, kids' eligibility and transfer rules and all that stuff. And they don't have anybody, there's no common sense factor helping out the IHSAA. I've always said I've never had a good experience with the IHSAA. It's a very poorly run organization that makes their own rules and doesn't have anybody that governs them. And that just is a bad situation all the way around. And they've made some really, really bad decisions that have really hurt. I can speak directly with my family. They have hurt my kids' abilities to play in high school, and it was completely unwarranted and unnecessary and ridiculous. The IHSAA is a joke. Like, there's nothing about it that I don't think is corrupt and wrong.
Oh, we could get Kyle Neddenrip on, and he's not one that rips people, but he could list a long list of decisions that were made. Yep. And I wish I could remember the one kid who had one of the most legitimate reasons for moving schools. It was his mother work and all this, and they just refused it. And it's just like, what is wrong with you?
Yep. It's a joke. It's an embarrassing joke, and they should be embarrassed, and they're not.
Yeah. They and many people thought that about the NCAA for a long time.
Totally. They're very parallel organizations.
and then they kept losing. And now their basic job now is to just put on championships, the basketball championships and baseball and all of that, everything except for football, which they do not put on the football championships.
Yeah, well, you look at schools like the Montverde and La Lumiere and all of these different prep schools. If the IHSAA and other state organizations, high school organizations, keep running the way that they have for the last 50 years, then all the top talent are going to leave and go play on all of these prep school teams, and I don't blame them because some of the decisions that are made by the IHSAA are just, they're silly. They don't make any sense, and they're not right. And the NCAA is dealing with some of the fallback right now on their bad decisions they've made, and I don't know how they recover from it, honestly. Like it's going to be difficult.
In the way too early top 25 from ESPN and from others, but just taking this one out, Indiana ranked number 16 in the preseason, which for Hoosier fans, that should bring a lot of excitement because they have not seen a top 25 ranking in a couple of years. So to be preseason, to be thought of that highly, which they should be, they've reloaded with a lot of talent. Purdue at the number 13 slot. We'll talk about them in a moment. But Indiana, they've reloaded with a lot of talent, Todd.
Yeah, they have. But you know what that does, Jim, and I'm glad it is what it is. I usually totally disregard the rankings at this point because you just said the too early ranking. Like, it's a joke. I get all of that. But I'll tell you what I do like about it for Indiana in this point is I think it puts a little pressure on them. And sometimes I think that pressure can be good. And I hope in this case it's one of those scenarios. But the expectation level is up there. So basically what I read into those rankings are people who study all the teams across the country and the rosters for all the teams across the country, because that's really all you can base it off of right now. Are the rosters that these teams have to deal with. Indiana as viewed by, a large group of people that they are in that top 20 rosters of talent across the country. And so now they've got to go out on the floor and back that up. And I like that side of it. I would rather have the expectations really high and have to live up to that than have no expectations and have to be some surprise good team.
Yeah, they list a projected starting lineup of Miles Rice, Kanan Carlisle, Mackenzie Mbako, Malik Renew, and Omar Ballo. That's not a bad starting lineup because if you look at what they averaged last year, Miles Rice averaged nearly 15 points per game. Kanan Carlisle, 11.5 points per game. Stopping right there at a moment. Last year, and not to put anything on him, but you had Gabe Cupps who averaged 1 point a game. Right. You were getting nothing there. So automatically you're getting 15 points a game at a position you weren't getting anything from last year. And you have, say, Trey Galloway on the bench behind that or something like that. But this is a big difference for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, it is. They're definitely I'll say much deeper and bigger expectations for what they're looking for at the guard position. But I'll tell you, I hope that roster I hope that lineup doesn't end up being what that is. And the reason I say that is because I want somebody to surprise us. Like, let's have somebody come in here and surprise us and play well. And whether that ends up being someone who's already been there and maybe injured for a couple of years, or whether that's somebody that just improves that much over the summer. I hope that we get surprised.
Who could that be, though? That Trey Galloway is the most likely candidate for that because, for one thing, Mike Woodson has shown a penchant for being loyal to his starters.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with you. But that's what I'm saying. I hope somebody makes improvements and player develops at some point to the level this summer where that lineup does get changed, and it is different because somebody stepped up. And I mean, Ja'Kai Newton is a guy
I
that
was just going to say,
I
Ja'Kai Newton
would
is
love
another
for
one.
him to surprise us all and be really good.
Yeah, Ja'Kai Newton is one that we definitely, and you've got the freshmen coming in. So there are guys that we've talked about a little bit, but we've not seen Ja'Kai Newton. We don't know what he can do, and he could be the shocker. He could be an X factor.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I hope so. Like, I hope somebody is way better than what we are even anticipating them to be.
All right, brother. I know you got to go, so we've got to take a break. So that works out just right. But look forward to talking to you again, and have a good one. Had a great week.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. We'll see you.
You betcha. The Todd Father, Todd Lirry, joining us here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio. We've got lots more coming up in the next hour. K-Bro will join us. Chronic Hoosier, I believe, as well. So back with plenty more. Brought to you by Freethink. Whatever you need, 20 T-shirts for family reunion or 200 for this summer's baseball league. Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts works with you to design a professional-looking, sales-generating web store of your very own for your custom-designed apparel or promotional merchandise. From large corporations to small businesses, high school sports teams to national accounts, Freethink Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Support those who support us. If you're needing something, whether you're a small business, uniforms for your work, whatever, make sure you reach out to Freethink and let me know if you do. Hey, we're back with plenty more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. That's good, Brian. That's good. I like that.
Good morning, Chronic.
Shot Father.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. How are you guys?
How was your you know what? I got just a ton of rest this weekend for the first time in like two months, and I slept so much. It's mind-boggling.
Game changer, what a little sleep will do for you.
Dude, I feel rejuvenated, ready to go. It's crazy. I was so worn down.
See, I feel like I'm on the other end of that spectrum. 14-hour day on Sunday, and my tank is empty. I'm needing a little bit of a downtime here just to get that recharge.
I hear you. I had that for like 6 weeks. Not a day off. 12-hour days, 14-hour days sometimes. It was amazing how freaking. And I actually did some landscaping like Friday night or something. Just got into this deal like I'm going to do this now. And it wasn't even hot outside, but it was so humid, I guess. I was sweating my ass off. But the landscaping looks beautiful.
It's all that counts.
And I put in some mothballs to keep the damn deer out of it. They're everywhere.
They are.
Here where we are, the studios, damn deer are all over the place. They're like pets. People treat
the difference out there is you can actually shoot them certain times of the year. Where I live, they're just as dense, and they know they're a protected class, so they are about as audacious as a wild animal can be.
Tannis, you ain't lying, brother. I need to stop by one of those things again, one of those arm blood pressure checkers. Last time I did, it said it was high. And every time I do, I've got this thing on my watch that I can do a health thing. And it always says, first thing it says, stress, elevated. Let's see what it says now when I do it. I'll do a new reading. I'm like, you ain't got to tell me. I know it's elevated.
All right, here we go, guys.
A new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this post-Memorial Day Tuesday. I hope everyone had a great, relaxing, fun weekend. Whatever you did, the Indianapolis 500 went off without a hitch after a delay. Chronic Hoosier joined us now. Chronic, I was talking earlier. I was so amazed by the crowd at the Indianapolis 500. They had to be evacuated because of the weather. They had to get them out of the aluminum stands. All of them didn't leave, but that's an unbelievable amount of people to evacuate, first of all. But when the race came back and was running, it was packed, and I was shocked. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. After this delay and they had to evacuate, usually you get people that leave. Man, those stands were freaking full.
Yeah, that was certainly a wild stretch there. Right about when the race should have been starting, right when the all the pre-race parades and pageantry are going on. The rain started to fall. The warning came out that they were evacuating the stands, and I think enough people had enough time before heading to the track to kind of get an idea of the timeline. And you get the sense that a lot of folks staggered their arrival, waiting for that front to pass, which probably made a huge difference, because in a facility that large, that's set up, primarily for viewing, elevated viewing around the track, all around the track, but focused on the track, there's not a lot of good shelter places. So we were situated in the main paddock, just off the start finish line, a little on the turn one side, and we were under the roof, which was nice until the winds picked up, and we were seated in row double D. So I'd imagine there's
so you were there. You made it.
I was there. This is a family tradition that goes back since I was 3 years old. My kids have all been since they were 3 years old. We were down a child this year. I got a daughter in Spain with her Spanish class, down at Bloomington South. They're in Madrid right now, so she didn't get to join us. First one she's missed since she started going in her life, but I've only missed 4 of them since I was 3 years old, and it's one of my family's favorite traditions, favorite events to celebrate. But at the end of the day, as tiring as it was, I got home at about 10:30, and was just fortunate that the racing gods gave me that much more time with my dad and my son. But it was a little dicey there. Like I said, we were in row double D, probably a third of the way down the paddock grandstand, under the roof, and we still got absolutely pelted. Now, a lot of folks behind us in the upper part of the section that were closest to the west-facing opening in the paddock, they all abandoned ship, so there wasn't a lot of buffer behind us. But it's a concrete structure underneath, and there wasn't a nook or cranny that wasn't occupied with people trying to stay dry and trying to stay sheltered. But fortunately, it was short-lived. They were able to get the track dry. They still went through and did the extra hour of unnecessary pomp before they dropped the green. And it turned out to be a hell of a race, at least a hell of a finish. I felt like the first half, the first 100 laps or so, was just a lot of unforced errors. I know Honda certainly had their issues with some of the engines,
Yeah,
but a lot of drivers.
How many Honda engines went out? Like 4 or 5?
Yeah, it seemed like every other lap they were blowing one up there to start the race. But the cautions were pretty numerous, but at least they gave us a little bit of time to stand up and stretch, because that was a long time seated in those metal bleachers. But the finish just turned out to be an absolute banger. Couldn't ask for better racing there at the end. And, at the end of the day, everybody made it home safe. Only 2/3 of the field crossed the line. But it was once again the greatest spectacle in racing. There's nothing like it on earth.
And Kyle Larson was he had a solid performance until he had a mishap, a penalty. He was running in the top 5, top 6, and then he had a penalty of speeding on pit road. And man, that cost him. He had to do a pass through, and that just killed him.
That was a race for him right there.
Yeah, it was over. I mean, and he was. I don't think that he could have won the race because of how strong Joseph Newgarden was, and that Penske automobile. But it was a great finish with Pato O'Ward. Boy, they were just purposely playing back and forth. At one point, Newgarden slowed down so much trying to make O'Ward pass him, and O'Ward slows down. It was crazy. And but then they play back and forth tag, and Newgarden gets the pass at the right time, and back-to-back winner for the first time in two decades.
Yeah, it was a hell of a finish, and you knew it was about lap 8. You had a really strong sense that you didn't want to be out front when the white flag dropped. That was just one of those where they were so closely matched. It looked like it was going to be a 4-car shootout. And then, Dixon made a hard charge all day to get back up into the thick there at the end. But, Joseph and Pato, they were able to get just enough separation to make it a 2-car race. And it was everything you hope for. It was clean racing. It was fast. It was competitive. There was a lot of jockeying. I would have loved to have seen what Kyle could have done those final laps, just because he had spent the entire day staying out of trouble, not taking the unnecessary risk that some of the veteran guys were doing, quite frankly. So to see a guy first time on the track, at least in the Indy car, just a really, really savvy race. But for that failure to check the brakes in time when he hit pit lane, that was just enough to keep him out of contention at the end, which was really unfortunate because I'd have loved to seen him thrown into the mix there at the very end. That was just a spectacular finish. It was just unfortunate. I know he was on social media yesterday, just absolutely devastated by it. And it didn't help that the Coca-Cola got rained out. So after all that effort and planning and strategies, he wasn't able to get the 1,100 miles in that he had hoped for. But
the funny thing is, he didn't even get to race in the Coca-Cola 600. He arrived down there, did all of that after the Indy was over, and to get down there. But right when he arrived, the weather affects the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte, and he never got to get in the car.
Yeah, it was tough. It's one of those feats that few guys can pull it off, both from the logistics standpoint as well as just the resources it takes. You got to have a team that's not only willing to spend like that, but to run the risk, and that came to bear this week. That it's just not going to work as planned. So unfortunate, but you love to see the drivers that just have true passion for racing, because it's not just when the TV cameras are on. Kyle was up in Kokomo earlier in the week running in the dirt. Just a true wheelman through and through. The guy can drive anything, and as he showed, first time ever in an Indy car, and he's running with the best of them. Now, it certainly speaks to the importance of having a team and the resources behind your team. It is certainly a rich man's game, as evidenced by Penske, once again on the podium. Kind of awkward, if we're being honest. There's no doubt that Roger consistently fields some of the best cars in auto racing. Just unfortunate that, there's a scandal hanging over his team heading into the 500 this year with the suspensions and everything else. But hey, they made it across the bricks first, so all credit to them. I think we're going to look back and probably realize Newgarden is in that same era as a lot of the Penske drivers over the years. Just a true competitor and absolute beast behind the wheel. But man, their cars just year in, year out, always top of the class. So credit to Penske. It was, as you mentioned, it was a logistical miracle that they were able to get that many people in safely. It was unfortunate. Heard a lot of reports at the end of the race that it was just an absolute quagmire, flooding, just congestion left and right. You got to wonder if that delay didn't kind of put a kink in some of those plans. But there was a lot of rain that fell in a real short period of time. So once again, we were fortunate to be on the shuttle buses and really didn't have to do much. Once you get down to Holt Road, out of the turn 1-2 short shoot, it's a little bit of a slog to get there, but once you get on Holt, man, it's just smooth sailing all the way back downtown to Lucas Oil. So I will say it till I'm blue in the face. That's the best $50 you'll ever spend, is buying that shuttle pass and not even have to mess with the traffic. Let the pros handle it. Take the protected lanes. You get as close as the staging for the buses as you could right outside the track there. You just hop on and off and get to your seat and get back home. It's a nice setup. We certainly enjoy it. Although I am still looking for those helicopter rides. If anybody knows how to get me on that list, I would love to see how that works too, because that's truly, as Kyle Larson can tell you, the way to get to and from the track.
Yeah, and Kyle Larson also, the rules of NASCAR, you have to participate in every race to be eligible for the playoffs. He has to get a waiver because he did not race in the Charlotte race, the Coca-Cola 600. He was not able to do that, but there's no question he'll end up getting that waiver. But he could have been knocked out of the playoffs, and he is the points leader in NASCAR right now.
Yeah, that was really the unfortunate side of that whole event, is he didn't score any points for his team's performance in the Coca-Cola. So plenty of season left for him to get it back. But it's also going to take a little bit of luck. I imagine the governing body is going to want to see one of their best drivers in contention at the end. But those are the rules, so it'll be interesting to see how that decision plays.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is he still the points leader now? I wonder.
I am not sure. I have not seen the updated standings since this weekend.
Trying to pull it up right now. I'm curious because he was the leader going in, and no, he lost a couple of spots, as a matter of fact. Denny Hamlin now at the top, Martin Truex Jr. second, with Kyle Larson third. So he dropped back. I don't know what the total points there.
He's 6 points behind Hamlin right now. Only one back from Truex.
Yeah, there you go. I got the same thing. So he's going to have to pick those back up. But hey, that's what happens when you do that. But I wanted to see it. I wanted to see him be able to do both because of his abilities. And I look forward to next year when hopefully the Indy 500 is not affected by weather. And so that he can actually do the double, because he is very, very accomplished, and look forward to that.
Yeah, there's not many things with wheels I wouldn't pick him as a favorite in any race, no matter his background. And the guy's just a driver, just a flat out driver. And you love to see it when guys can ply their trade in all the different disciplines. So whether it's open wheel, IndyCar racing, whether it's racing sprints, you name it, just give those guys something to drive and line them up and drop the flag and see where it turns out.
Tomorrow night is the Hoosiers at Huber's down in southern Indiana at Borden at Huber's Orchard Winery and Vineyards. It's been going on for 3 decades. It started out as a way to get Bob Knight down there to speak to the Alumni Association of Southern Indiana and Louisville, and is now turned into an NIL event, Chronic. All benefits will go to Indiana University's NIL program, and Coach Mike Woodson. It'll be the first opportunity for the media to speak with him, and last opportunity until the season starts. So we'll be down there covering that. Kurt Signetti, of course, as well. Our first and last opportunity to talk to him before the season gets going and before the fall camp rolls out. In addition to some players that will be there It's a big event. It always packs the house down there, but it'll be interesting to see what these guys have to say. Of course, Mike Woodson is reloaded, and currently was talking with Todd Leary earlier. The Hoosiers ranked in the top 20 in a lot of most preseasons, top 20 way too early, top 25s.
Yeah, no, this is an exciting time. We've talked about it quite a bit. This off season, it's been a remarkable job by this staff to put together the roster that they have, considering all the holes they had to fill. They've got talent, they've got depth of talent. They've raised the floor on the roster. They put themselves in a situation now where your guess is as good as mine as what the rotation is going to look like, because it certainly seems there are a lot of guys that should have a claim to stake some of those minutes out, and it's going to be fascinating to see how they're distributed and how that's managed, because that's typically the situation that leads a lot of guys into the portal looking for greener pastures when the minutes just aren't there. So as we've said before, it takes a lot of effort, not only to get the guys on campus, but to get them to buy into what you're trying to do. And when you've got guys, you have multiple guys, possibly filling your same slot on the roster, recognizing it's going to be a competition, and there's no guarantees, and it's one of those situations where you're just going to have to get into the gym and figure out where everybody stacks up. But that's a great problem to have, especially considering, where a lot of folks thought IU would be after last season. It's going to be an exciting time, and none of it matters if you can't get the mix, if you can't get the chemistry together. But you've got guys showing up on campus right now. I think I just saw yesterday Rice is officially in Bloomington now, so you should start seeing them trickle in as summer session begins in earnest and the off-season conditioning program gets underway. And this is when the magic happens, is when nobody's really paying attention. There's no media availability, no cameras turned on. But make no mistake, the summer session is when teams are made or broken, for that matter. So a lot at stake right now that we won't really know about the fruits until November. But the important thing is they've got the roster set. I think we're pretty sure they're set now. Probably going to leave that 13th spot open and start.
Well, that was my question.
The future.
That was something I was going to ask next. Are the Hoosiers done? Because they do have another available scholarship, and they have. It's unusual because most teams do not have 12, 13 guys that actually can play, that you can actually expect to go out and play. Usually you've got a couple of guys. There's one guy that's almost he's just short of being a walk-on. But the depth on this team is truly deep. I mean, you go all the way down through there. You go past the guys that they added that were obvious, like Miles Rice and Kanan Carlisle and Ballo. But you've got the starters returning, of course, and Trey Galloway, who may or may not start. Not that it matters. I don't think it matters this year if he starts or not. We've seen that guys that start or may have less minutes than guys that don't start. But it's also important to have guys coming off the bench that are just as good as the guys you're taking out. That is the difference. And I think that's what's been a problem for Woodson when he was doing the hockey lineup switch. You're bringing in a whole group of guys that do not come close to what you took out. And now, not that we want to see that type of substitution patterns, or not that fans want to see that type of substitution pattern again. You have the ability to sub with almost equal potential of what you're putting in from what you're taking out.
Yeah, I think it's the depth is certainly there. I think what's going to be really interesting is the dynamicism that this roster is going to enable Woodson with his lineup construction, because it's going to give him the ability to get away from, if he chooses, and that's the big question, if he wants to get away from the too big setup, the bully ball, the buddy ball that has been so prevalent in his offense up to this point. there's certainly the possibility for a lot of really interesting combinations, both scoring, defensively. It's a deep roster, and there's still some questions as far as the post. I don't know that Renew's really itching to play a lot of five in the event that Ballo gets in foul trouble, but with Hatton, you've got a little bit of a backstop there. The question is he Big Ten ready? Because that was certainly something that we've seen in the past where, like last year, when Ware sat, there was a pretty big drop off on both ends of the floor. That was kind of the offensive cog where everything got dumped down low and just sorted from there. Defensively, the rim protection was a big factor, and that was exacerbated, I felt like, because the perimeter defense was lacking pretty consistently throughout the year. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how these changes, how the additions this offseason improve the perimeter defense, improve the offense's ability to play in a more dynamic fashion. Hopefully see a little bit more of the three ball, a little bit less of the long twos, and more than anything, just get up and down the floor, because this team certainly looks to be as athletic as almost any we've seen in a long time, and would love to see them be able to leverage that. And it's on both ends of the floor. I think that gets lost. Athletes, they make a lot of highlights in the offensive end, but defense is where the game truly gets changed. And getting those guys committed to playing the defense, and it took all season last year to really get it back on the level that Woodson had come to allow fans to expect. And that was evident in the results. And even when the offense struggled, once they got the defense dialed in, they were certainly a lot more competitive down the stretch. So would love to see them get that dialed in earlier, so that as the offense continues to grow and develop over the course of the season, you've got that foundation in the defense that's going to allow you to compete. And when you've got the talent like this, you can have guys go all out, not having to save themselves, not having to have too much of a drop off on the offensive end, because they're so committed to playing the defense that they're going to need to. When you've got that depth behind them, it allows you to keep some fresh legs out there. And as we mentioned, by raising the overall talent level, I think you raise the floor and what the baseline is going to be. Even when they're at their worst, they should be able to compete. But that's all on paper, and as we've seen, that has to play out on the floor. So this is where it's happening now, and in this off season, they got to get on campus first, and then they got to figure it out. But that's something that's got to happen organically. And you mentioned Galloway. I don't know that he's cleared to play yet. Could be sometime this summer before he's out there going 5v5 full contact. So it's going to be a time till you get the complete mix together, but it's also going to allow some guys to get some early run in that vacancy.
Absolutely. Chronic Hoosier, thank you so much as always, brother.
Appreciate you having me, Jim. We'll catch you next week.
You betcha. Hey, we've got lots more coming up. Our good buddy K-Bro is going to join us. Don't forget, if you know a team or a group needing a fundraiser, Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Just go to boostfundraising.com. Be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Everybody needs to raise funds. You've always got marching bands and all that stuff doing that. If you have kids or know someone, there you go. Boost Fundraising. Support those who support us so we can keep bringing you the content. More coming up with K-Bro on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. All right, just so you know, this is an open segment, but K-Bro will be after that at 10.
That's cool. Be a short seg, so that's good.
Yep. Well, 10-minute-er, 9-10-minute-er.
What have I missed that went on?
You haven't mentioned much. You haven't mentioned much about Indiana baseball making the tournament. If you want.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That's right.
I think they got paired up. They're in the number one overall seeds bracket, aren't they? Tennessee.
Yeah. Down in Memphis.
Knoxville.
Oh, no.
The friendly confines.
Is it Knoxville or Memphis? Oh.
That's where UT is, right? Don't they play on campus?
Yeah, but why was I thinking it's in Memphis?
I don't know.
I wrote down Knoxville, so never mind. That would be stupid for it not to be in Knoxville.
Tennessee, Southern Miss, Indiana, and Northern Kentucky. I tell you what, that'd be something if they were able to find a way to, get out of that.
Man, yeah, but they couldn't beat Nebraska. Played like 6 straight elimination games.
Yeah. How many Big Ten teams got
who
in?
won
Indiana,
who won the Big Ten? Who won that tournament?
Nebraska did.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh my! All right. So the Indiana game, I think, was the 5th straight.
3 Big Ten teams got in: Indiana, Illinois, and Nebraska.
So they would have.
Nebraska's in the Stillwater Regional against Oklahoma State, Florida, and Niagara. Illinois is in the Lexington Regional against Kentucky, Indiana State, and Western Michigan.
Talk about that with me when we come back.
Kentucky really good this year, by the way. Are they the number 2 overall seed or number 4? They're one of the top 4 seeds.
WELL. Let me see what it says. All right. Stress elevated.
Whose stress is elevated? Yours?
Mine. Yeah.
Oh.
I did the
okay.
Test on my watch thing. It's never said anything but elevated.
I believe.
I swear.
I believe.
I'm not going, damn.
All right, here we go.
HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this post-Memorial Day Tuesday. Hope everyone had a fun weekend, relaxing, or whatever you got into. The Indianapolis 500, of course, went off with just a slight delay. Joseph Newgarden wins back-to-back Indy 500s, the first to do it in 2 decades. Great race. Talked about the unfortunate of Bill Walton passing away at 71 of brain cancer. He'll be missed. He was a unique character, man, and I was hoping that that would have been amazing to see him do some IU games, but it would have been those on the West Coast. I don't think he would have come to Assembly Hall just for the travel and all that, but it would have been cool to see that. Indiana baseball, one of 3 Big Ten teams, John Boy, to make the big tournament. Indiana is one game. They go 1 game short of making the Big Ten tournament, losing to Nebraska, the ultimate winner, who would have played at least 6 straight elimination games. That's unfathomable that they were just playing on the edge every time. And so you got to give it to Nebraska, man. That's a great accomplishment. Indiana will be down in Knoxville, unfortunately, taking on or in the pod that includes the overall number 1 seed, the Tennessee Volunteers. So that is not an easy road for the Hoosiers.
That pod also includes Southern Miss and Northern Kentucky. But yeah, it would be quite the feat if Jeff Mercer's able to figure out how to get out of that region. But again, no one likes to talk moral victories, but I feel like most fans will be happy enough that this team is in the NCAA tournament to begin with.
One of only 3 Big Ten teams, like you
That's
said,
true.
to make it to the tournament. And so, and if you look how the season went for Indiana, the start of the season was okay, but then it seemed like it took a dip, but then they picked back up during Big Ten play and they battled, they fought. And to make the NCAA tournament, that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah, and this team was in the top 25 in a lot of polls in the beginning of the season. So a lot of expectation. I would say most of that expectation probably fell short, but to be in the field, it's definitely something to be happy about if you're an Indiana baseball fan. And we'll see what happens in the Knoxville Regional. It'll be tough for them to get out of that, but, crazier things have happened before.
Yeah, we'll see.
You mentioned the other 2 Big Ten teams. You have Illinois. Well, I'm going to mute myself and clear my throat real fast.
How did that happen? I mean, just that's a little surprise. And it's the fact that it's Illinois and Nebraska and, Michigan, they've got former Indiana coach. Oh, damn it. Why am I Smith? Was it
Tracy Smith?
Tracy Smith. And boy, that program had been kind of on an upswing, and then
they won didn't win, but they made it to the national championship game not too long ago. Most recent Big Ten team to do it. Lost to UCLA, I believe it was. I can't remember who they lost to that season.
But yeah, I would have thought that Michigan would have been one of those teams, but wasn't
Illinois, the 3 seed in the Lexington Regional. They'll face Kentucky, Indiana State, and Western Michigan. And then the final Big Ten team we've already mentioned, Nebraska. They will be traveling to Stillwater, Oklahoma, to take on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, as well as Florida and Niagara. We'll be talking with K-Bro here, actually, in just a moment. He may have been keeping up with some Florida baseball, who will be likely taking on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So those are your Big Ten teams in this year's NCAA baseball tournament. None of them likely favored to make it out of the regional. That doesn't mean that they won't, but that's what we got going on in this year's road to the College World Series, if you will.
Hey, got someone asking, what's the name of your podcast? I forget.
Oh, Out of Touch, the Out of Touch podcast. Yeah.
How did you come up with that name? Because I love the name.
The name we came up with. So I was at my afternoon job at iHeart, and Dustin and I had been talking about switching up what we were doing with our podcast, because for a couple of years we were just doing Indiana football recaps and that kind of thing, and we decided we wanted to talk more than just football in general and sports in general, because whenever we would fill in as kind of segment hosts on this show, on your show, Jim, we would kind of go off the wall. And that's kind of where the idea to do Out of Touch came from, because we would typically take your show in a very different direction than would typically go. And we were like, you know what if we changed our podcast and did 45 minutes to an hour on just whatever was on our minds, some crazy things going on in our lives, and just fun topics to get into. And that's where Out of Touch, the name, came from. And then we brought Mitchell Page along with us, because how his personality kind of fits all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, that's a little background by, for the podcast. Releases every Wednesday on Spotify and my YouTube channel.
So basically it's a spinoff of our show.
In a sense, yeah. Unfortunately, Dustin no longer with Indiana Sports Beat, but it can be seen as a spinoff as Indiana Sports Beat.
And I would love to start doing a segment that leads into the next episode. That's something we should do.
Yeah, we can. If we can make that work, that'd be great. Especially if we can get Mitchell on weekly. And maybe
even if we can't, me and you can.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, I haven't fully. We're supposed to record tonight, as a matter of fact, but I haven't fully laid out a rundown for this week. Sometimes I come in with a whole bunch of ideas, and I know exactly what we're going to talk about. Sometimes I just get on there and we just blabber, and we just go. We don't even know what we're going to talk about.
Some of it is just, I'm like, all right, how did that come up? I see some of the topics, and I just
we've gone down some weird territory. One of the most interesting ones we did, and then we'll get to break here to let K-Bro on. we had people call in about conspiracy theories, and we got into some very weird stuff. And we never know which direction the Out of Touch podcast is going to go down. So check that out if you're interested.
Absolutely. Hey, we've got much more coming up. K-Bro, Kevin Brockway joins us here in the next segment right after this. Brought to you by Hoosier Hanks, located right off of College Mall Road. Just stop over and visit Hoosier Hanks. They have a litany of great food, pizzas, stroms, baked wings, mac bowls, fresh salads, and so much more. Dine in, carry out, or have Hank cater your next event. Hoosier Hanks East is a great place to watch the games or gather with your team after the game to use their exclusive party room for your next gathering. Order online at HoosierHanks.com or visit at 1285 South College Mall Road. We're back with more, including K-Bro, Kevin Brockway, right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right. K-Bro is here.
K-Bro.
How you guys doing?
Well,
thanks for hopping on it with
man.
really short notice.
No worries.
Always better when K-Bro's on.
Good.
Ooh, y'all hear that lawnmower outside my house? Really close by. At least it sounds like a lawnmower.
Yeah, I've got a lawnmower going near my place too. So
your hair looks great.
It looks okay. Okay.
How are things in Gainesville, man?
Things are good. Yeah, things are very good.
Did Florida make the baseball tournament?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I just mentioned that earlier.
I saw that Indiana made it too. So.
Well, I missed it, John Boy.
And then Florida plays Nebraska. So can you give me a
they're
scouting
in
report
they're
on
in Nebraska's
Nebraska
region. Or I should say Oklahoma State's region. Since
Nebraska's just on a heater. They played at least 6 straight elimination games in the Big Ten tournament.
Well, but that's like their home ballpark, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they had. I'm sure they outnumbered all the fans there.
Yeah, but that.
It's not their home ballpark, but they're in Nebraska. Where if you're not if you're not a Nebraska fan, you're a Creighton fan, and you're definitely outnumbering the Creighton fans.
And you don't think of Nebraska when you think baseball.
Well, Omaha College World Series, you know.
Well,
they have a big baseball fan base. But it's not their football fan base by any means, but they have a good baseball.
Alex Gordon, who played for the Kansas City Royals, is he still playing? He's a Nebraska guy.
Oh, I don't know. You know what I learned the other day? I learned that Tyronn Lue is a Nebraska basketball alum. I did not know that.
How about that?
But again, I'm 26. I'm sure both of you guys knew that.
No, I knew he was a coach, right?
He's an NBA coach. He coached LeBron to his Cavs championship. I mean, I didn't realize he was a Nebraska guy, though, until recently.
And I see you're wearing your Pacer shirt with pride. We can talk a little bit about that. I watched you at the game last night.
Yeah. It was a combo of actually this was purchased at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Oh, did he go to the 500 this year?
I decided not to go to the race the last minute just because I was waiting for I knew it was going to be a long delay. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then by the time the race was going to go, I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to deal with the traffic now because that's going to get me home about midnight. And I was not into that. I had too much of a relaxing weekend for the first time in forever. But I went to the track several times for events. Which actually is pretty incredible. I will tell you, going that Saturday and especially the Sunday.
Here we go,
Sunday
guys.
And Friday are the 2 best days to go besides the race. Table, part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this post-Memorial Day Tuesday. Again, salute to all the troops, past and present. Thank you so much for your service. We're brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Marie Island, Florida. If you're already in the area or will be, the Ugly Grouper is much more than just unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. They have your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. It's the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Just visit theuglygrouper.com for more information. You're not too far from there, K-Bro.
I was going to say, Jim, how did you land an advertiser from Florida? I thought it's very impressive. And the Ugly Grouper, I don't know if are there any pretty groupers out there or whatever. Or have you ever caught a grouper?
I have not personally, but I've certainly consumed some. They are delicious, without question. But on Anna Maria Island, Florida, a great place to be. It is the place to be. It's like on Seinfeld. How have you been, man?
I've been good. It's been obviously interesting time in Florida athletics. It's not every day that a former recruit and star quarterback from a rival school sues a head football coach, but that happened this last week with Jaden Rashada suing Billy Napier. Certainly that was a national story that I had to deal with.
And what's that all about?
Well, basically it's about what allegedly was promised to Rashada during the recruiting process, which was that $13.8 million contract, which, depending on who you talk to, was or wasn't binding. I don't think it was binding, basically, but they're going to argue that promises were made and that he was defrauded. And, the attorney that's representing Jaden Rashada is Rusty Hardin, who, is a pretty famous attorney in Texas. As you remember, represented Roger Clemens during the PED scandal. So he's a celebrity lawyer type from Texas that's going to be dealing with Jaden, and it's going to be interesting, especially now that Rashada is at Georgia. He's not going to play this year. He's going to back up Carson Beck, but it's still big doings down here in SEC country. And also Florida softball going to the College World Series. Florida baseball makes the NCAA tournament barely, as does your Indiana Hoosiers, Jim. And I guess that's, obviously a credit to Jeff Mercer. And, it's also interesting that if you follow Kendall Rogers, who's the big baseball guy, he mentioned the fact that, certain members on the committee, Scott Dolson, the AD at Indiana, Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida, he kind of intimated maybe they influenced Indiana or Florida or some other schools from getting into the tournament, based on the fact that they were bubble teams. But I think that's a bunch of hogwash. I mean, Florida had the number one strength of schedule in the country. And Indiana, probably played a pretty tough schedule too, right? They were very deserving.
Yeah, he went down and south and early on in the season and had a good start, and then had a little dip, but were able to come back. So and Nebraska, they're the ones that surprises me. They played at least 6 straight. I mentioned this a lot. They played at least 6 straight elimination games in the Big Ten tournament and ended up winning that thing.
Yeah, and that's going to be Indiana. That's going to be Florida's first opponent, Nebraska. So that should be pretty interesting. And I know that obviously they won there. And then Brett Sears, right, the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year. Someone told me he's like 24 years old or something like that. And that's the guy Florida will probably face on Friday. They play at 3:00 in Stillwater. But it's always interesting when the Big Ten and the SEC play these kind of crossover games in sports like baseball, because you always wonder, right? The SEC had a record 11 teams in the tournament. I know that Indiana's going to Tennessee's regional, right? They're going to Knoxville to see, them stack up. And obviously, with the Big Ten and baseball, I mean, it's not a climate, obviously, that's conducive to having high-level baseball, but you never know. I mean, sometimes those teams will surprise you from the conferences. Michigan, right, has had some good teams in the past. And, maybe this will be the year that Indiana can post an upset and break through.
Well, that would be a hell of an upset. The overall number 1 seed, Tennessee Volunteers, out of the SEC, coming out of the number 1 league. And we'll see if that can happen. But I don't know if they have the pitching to be able to do that, although they had some good runs with pitching and then not so much. So we'll see. We'll keep up with it and see how that goes. But basketball is never far away from everyone's mind. Last year, Florida had a nice run in the NCAA tournament. And looking through the preseason, way too early top 25, and you've got Purdue at number 13, Florida at number 15, and Indiana at number 16. So Florida is not giving up much. This is an ESPN listing here, and it says Florida struck gold in the portal last spring and has already reeled in 3 transfers this year. The Gators, who have All-American candidate and one of the nation's top scorers in Walter Clayton Jr., if he decides to withdraw. Did he come back?
Yeah, so I was going to tell you that. The news yesterday, Walter Clayton coming back along with Will Richard. So you have those 2 starters back in the backcourt, along with Elijah Martin, who I thought was Dusty's best player at FAU a couple of years ago when they made that Final Four run. Probably didn't have as good a season last year. Took a little more of a seat to John L. Davis, the kid from Gary, Indiana, as you know. But I think that Elijah is a guy who, at 6'2" and 215, I mean, this kid's built like an SEC running back, and he plays hard on both ends. He's physical. He's a physical guard, strong guard, takes really well, shoots the ball really well. I think he was over 40% from 3 2 years ago. Last year, he was in the 36, 37% range. So Florida's got those 3 guards again. I just wonder, do they give Walter Clayton a chance to be the true point? Do they give Elijah Martin a chance to be the true point? And I think that's where they might miss their point guard from last year, who, was out of eligibility, Zion Palm, because he was just so steady with the basketball. And, based from what I saw from Walter Clayton last year when he tried to play the point, a little turnover prone. So, I mean, I think that's a concern. And Elijah Martin, looking at his assist to turnover ratio at FAU, probably not much better. So do you have a pure point on the roster? They do have a guy, Denzel Aberdeen, who's coming up who they like. But then who do you sit if you're going to, play Denzel Aberdeen as the point? So I think that's the one big question is the point guard replacing Zion Pullman. Other than that, they've got a lot of answers. Alex Condon was an all-SEC freshman last year. He's coming back, the Australian kid. I think, you're going to see him continue to blossom and develop. Thomas Houck is another guy, big guy. And then they brought in Ruben Chanelu from, Washington State, 6'11" kid. Who's got a lot of upside and has a lot of size too, who will be pretty good as well.
And then the Big Ten, I don't know, we talk about it way too early. I don't know, because we don't know who's what this year in the Big Ten. In the last 2 years, it was easy. You had Mount Edie, and so he just was that was just an anomaly to me, just having something like that. He's gone. And while I know we have some Purdue guys on, they're very confident that Purdue is going to be almost just as strong. And I look at it and I'm like, I don't think so. I'm not seeing it. They've got Braden Smith back, Fletcher Lawyer back, Camden Heide, who is going to be a really good player. I like him when you see him. And you can see how he can probably is going to add a lot to them. But the guy in the middle, Trey Kaufman-Renn, who they the Purdue guys think that he's going to be, successful there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing that. I'm sorry, but he's 6'8". He's not going to dominate anything. And as a matter of fact, he's going to get dominated at times, I think. You got Umar Ballo just at Indiana, and that doesn't include some of the other guys around the league that are going to be set up much better. Caleb First, they're going to have to slot in there. He has not given much thus far as well. So right now you're looking at a lineup for Purdue that Braden Smith averaged 12 points per game. As much has been talked about him, he only averaged 12 a game. Fletcher Lawyer, he averaged 10 a game. And then the rest of the guys that are penciled in now, let's see, 3 and 6 is 9, 10, 11, 12. Those 3 guys total averaged 12 points a game last year. So they're going to have to put up a bunch where you look at, say, Indiana, who has added Miles Rice, who averaged nearly 15 points a game. Kanan Carlisle, 11.5 points a game. Mackenzie Mbako, who averaged over 12 points a game, and that's expected to rise. Malik Renew, who averaged 15 points a game. And then you add Omar Ballo, who averaged over 14 points a game. So Indiana is set to actually potentially be the best team in the Big Ten. I don't want to say that yet because I don't know enough about other teams, but they are definitely one of those. But right behind them in the rankings, and I keep forgetting the UCLA Bruins. I keep forgetting about the fact that these 4 teams are going to be in the Big Ten, Kevin, and they've got a lineup of guys that all have double-figure averages of scoring. So UCLA and Indiana could be the top of the Big Ten next year.
Yeah, that will be fascinating to see how those former Pac-12 teams integrate. Don't forget Oregon and Dana Altman. He's a pretty good coach as well. I think that's another, certainly program worth watching in terms of how they're going to adapt. And it'll be fascinating for sure. One guy you didn't mention at Purdue who I kind of liked and had a high upside, and I remember watching him in travel ball right before I left the state, is Miles Colvin. That's another guy too that I think, has upside and can develop and can be a pretty good player. But you're right about Indiana in terms of the fact that you got the front court, you got the size, Renew, and I think both Renew and Mbako coming back is huge, obviously, for Indiana, because you also have 2 guys that kind of know each other too, a little bit of chemistry there to go along with, obviously Ballo, who can be a force inside. For sure. But again, it's going to come down to the point guard play. It's going to come down to the backcourt. I mean, that's been kind of certainly the big bugaboo for Mike Woodson since he started. He had Hood Schifino, and when he had Hood Schifino, they made a nice run. But they're going to have to, have that high level play in the backcourt to complement the front court to really, do something significant and be a championship caliber team. But obviously a huge year for Mike Woodson. He can't afford another step back. And I think that
he has to win.
I think they did a really nice job in the portal and certainly reloaded, and it looks like a really balanced team on paper. But you'll have to see how some of the pieces mesh. But Renew and Mbako, you got to like both those guys coming back.
Well, and the biggest thing for Indiana is going to be balancing that lineup. Balancing that roster, because of the guys that I already mentioned, Miles Rice, Kanan Carlisle, Mbako, Renew, Ballo, that I haven't even talked about Trey Galloway. I haven't talked about Luke Goody. There's Ja'Kai Newton, who is an unknown that could be an X factor. You've got the freshmen. There's just so many. How are they going to balance?
I think even Anthony Leal showed a little something last year that he could be a guy off the bench, like an X factor guy as well. Yeah.
So it's going to be. I think the Big Ten is going to be fun to watch this year especially because of the addition of UCLA and Oregon, adding that to the mix, Indiana and Purdue, and ranked down below them. How about the Ohio Buckeyes coming in at number 22? A team that went on a unbelievable run ironically, after they let go of their coach. And
we'll see what Dusty May can do in Michigan too. That's going to be fascinating to watch as well.
And the Terrapins are listed at number 24. They've got a lot of guys coming back.
Brad Underwood is still there at Illinois. He's a pretty good coach, and
Derek Queen listed as a starter for Maryland. That's going to be interesting. So it will be the Big Ten is just going to be very interesting next year.
Who's your favorite coach to deal with in the Big Ten?
Oh man, that's easy. Tom Izzo.
You like Izzo?
He tells it like it is. He'll talk to you. First of all, he'll talk to you. But he tells it like it is. He's not BSing most of the time. and he can be funny, but he's still old school. And how can you not like old school and coaches that respect what you do, what we're doing, what we need to do? I think he does all of that.
You forgot to mention another coach who's kind of turned the corner a little bit with this program is Fred Hoiberg at Nebraska. I mean, he's got it.
Well, absolutely.
He's got it going a little bit too there. So yeah, it's going to be a really competitive Big Ten. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of, parity but Indiana certainly loaded up, and we'll see if that can result in more wins next year.
Absolutely. What's up next for you, sir?
Yeah, well, just going to be obviously busy with baseball postseason, softball, and the Women's College World Series as well. And although Noah Ram, my colleague, is going to be handling that. And then, we'll get into football. And, before you know it, it'll be football season. And that down here, that takes precedence over everything, much like basketball does in your neck of the woods. So.
Well, absolutely. We appreciate you. It's always fun to chat it up with K-Bro.
Yeah, hey, it's great to be here, Jim. I hope that you have a good summer, and I hope there's plenty of golf in store for you.
We'll see. It's been a lot of work, but this weekend was amazing. Got some sleep in, man. It was great.
Sleep is always a good thing, Jim. That's we would call it. You got to get your rest, but I hope that you seize the day too, as the late Bill Walton would say. Also, that's very sad, obviously news, but one of the great personalities in basketball that we lost this week.
Absolutely. K-Bro, can't thank you enough, my friend.
All right. Good to talk.
Appreciate you, brother. Kevin Brockway joining us from down in Gainesville. Appreciate him always as we chat up some college basketball, especially the Big Ten. Man, we'll talk about that more, but the Big Ten is going to be fun. I'm telling you, it is going to be a freaking battle this year with all of the normal teams, Indiana, Purdue, Maryland, Ohio State, maybe Illinois, UCLA, Oregon, etc. We'll talk more about that as the week goes on. Tomorrow, Dylan Sin on the program from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Kyle Neddenripp from the Indy Star, and Rick Bozich, the captain, joins us from WDRB.com. So looking forward to that. Big thanks today to everybody that joined us on the program. Of course, the Todd father, Todd Lirry, Chronic Hoosier as well. So looking forward, and Kevin Brockway, of course. But and big thanks to JTP for keeping us between the white lines, and most importantly, each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana